By nearly all measures, save of course actually having product on the shelf, the Hunted has been a success and extremely well received. But it also took the fab is too expensive argument and said, hold my beer. The introduction of a new generic staple, a highly demanded one-handed dagger absolutely necessary for the set's base mechanics, and the massive demand for flick knives, a card basically essential for two of the set's constructed builds to function. And therein lies my gripe with the Hunted, because I really believe that flick knives should have been a reprint within this set. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends, and welcome back to the channel. And of course, happy Flesh and Blood Friday. Thanks for checking in today. So, in general, I try my best to avoid the financial side of these games. And while it has certainly cost me subs and clicks over the years, I've mostly been successful in that goal. However, when it comes to topics like today's, the conversations are really so inextricably entwined that there's really no avoiding it. So let's just go full bore in, right? Flick Knives is a legendary rarity equipment for both the Assassin and Ninja classes that was released in the Outsider set in March of 2023. A really cool piece that anchored the dagger support from that set, but by and large didn't see significant meta play. By the start of 2024, Flick Knives was actually selling in the mid-teens and even as low as $11 US in September of 2024. The card just really wasn't in overall high demand. But with Spoilers of the Hunted in late 2024, the speculation buying started. And with the set's full reveal in January of 2025, the confirmation that Flick Knives wasn't in the Hunted, the card price absolutely exploded, selling for as high as $140 US, and for good reason. The first was the additional dagger support in the set, making Flick Knives significantly more useful. Prior to the retrieve mechanic, the cost of throwing a dagger was prohibitively high. Backfilling the thrown dagger required something like a concealed blade, but more impactfully, also required using extremely valuable sideboard space with which to keep those backfills. As such, the usage of Flick Knives was largely limited to the Assassin class, trying to take advantage of the various on-hit daggers from Outsiders. But with Retrieve and other replacement methods from the Hunted, the ability to re-equip from the graveyard shifted the discussion. So yes, that's one factor, but the more impactful one, and the largest reason for Flick Knives' 10x increase in price, the fact that the card is so incredibly essential to the fundamental mechanics of the constructed format archetypes in the Hunted. The Assassin Marks package, employed by both Marionette and Adult ASC, highly depends on Flick Knives to side in the mark hits, so much so that it's been in all the top lists to date. And then there's Syndra, who, let's be completely honest here, really doesn't even work without the ability to flick a kunai and land it in the discard. So yes, it is a fact that 2/3 of the set depends on Flick Knives in order to be constructed viable, and as such, it then tracks as to why Flick Knives skyrocketed. But for me, that is the very reason that it should have been included as a reprint within the Hunted. And there's precedent for this. A crucial legendary rarity armor piece being reprinted as it was critical to the archetypes in the set, and that was of course Teklo Foundry Heart being reprinted in the all-mech set, Bright Lights. And as I see it, Flick Knives is just as crucial to the Hunted Throw Dagger archetypes as Teklo Foundry Heart was to the Boost archetypes. And given that it would have been a reprint that resided within the expansion slot, it also would have had zero impact to the limited format. So from my perspective, there's no legitimate reason that Flick Knives should not have been given a reprint within the Hunted. To me, it seems obvious this shouldn't have happened, so why didn't it? And if we're being honest, friends, we all know the likely reason, because we need to protect the collectors. That's right, more than likely, it was due to the outspoken backlash from when Teklo Heart was given its reprint. But here's the problem. That outspoken backlash was but a handful of very loud and very selfish individuals who were potentially playing the spec game and maybe got burned.
Yes! Yes! Oh, let me taste your tears, Scott. Your tears are so yummy and sweet.
Because the counter-argument to reprinting Flick Knives is that collector value would go down with the reprint. And there's no denying that from a technical point, there's validity to that statement. But again, folks, the reprint would have come in a non-foil treatment, and as the usefulness of the card, and thus the associated demand increased, so would the value of the rainbow and cold foil versions, Remember again, the one selling for $11 in September was the rainbow foil version. Furthermore, we really need to point out the magnitude here of the price swings to put things into perspective. Prior to the Hunted, Flick Knives was a $15, maybe $20 US card. So a loss in value on that card through an announced non-treatment reprint would be largely insignificant, especially in a game where functional staples pushed $80 US. But the impact of not reprinting it was a near overnight jump of over $100, correlating to a 5x to 10x increase. And for a card that is a functional staple to 2 out of 3 heroes within the set, I see that as being pretty darn restrictive. And compare that with us now having to explain to new players why, if they want to pick up one of the heroes from the new set that isn't Fang, they should be very careful and aware in making their choices. Adding yet another 100+ barrier to a hero like Syndra is really unfortunate. And that's why I reject the collector's value argument against such a reprint. The collector's pieces, like the cold foils, will retain their value regardless. Fab players love, I should say need, our shinies, right? The Outsiders version of Flick Knives would have absolutely still increased in value. Now granted, probably not as high as it ended up, but it certainly would have been much higher than they were. So in this case, a reprint would have provided a player's piece at a much more approachable level while still rewarding the long-term collectors. Now hey, I've owned my Flick Knives since like week 2 of Outsider season, so perhaps I'm in the wrong camp on this one. But I'd gladly have a card I own, which I have no intention of ever trading or selling, be worth $10 less than have to explain yet again to a new player why they can't even really consider playing Syndra without buying a $100 to $120 card. And I suppose I can acquiesce that when competitive decks are $1,000, $1,500, or even maybe pushing $2,000, what's another $100 on top of that? And while I can grant that from a competitive standpoint, my main focus continues to be trying to grow this great game, and $100 is a big selling point when we're having that discussion. See, the Hunted was a really cool set, and the fact that it's basically missing from shelves everywhere reinforces that this just isn't an opinion of mine alone. But not reprinting Flick Knives was a mistake, and something that I truly hope is a one-off and not the new norm. So let me know your thoughts, Fab friends. Should Flick Knives have been reprinted in the Hunted, or was it more important to protect that collector value? Let me know in the thoughts below, and if nothing else, my friends, go Commando.